Brothers, welcome back. Hopefully you all had a great weekend. Gonna do something a little bit different today. Was asked in the Discord to go over a couple Idleon efficiencies, and I've got a example of what I would consider mid game, and then kind of going into late game here. So this is going to be a nice side by side comparison. Show you exactly when you ask somebody to look at your Idleon efficiency, kind of what they're looking for when they're trying to give you advice. So got the recommendation from the Discord. As you can see, I just got roasted, so it is a good time over in the PalmerPlays Discord. I'll make sure I drop a link to that over in either the comments or the description. But we're having a good time. I'm getting roasted. Would love to see you over there. But without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so there's going to be a couple ground rules here. The big one is I'm not going to go super into the weeds for things that just require waiting. Because if I say, wait harder, what are you going to do? There's no such thing as waiting harder or waiting faster. But as we jump into this, I think there's a couple things that you can just, tell right off the bat. So we're going to jump into darkens on the left and then aberrates on the right. So we're going to come in here. First thing we're going to look at the stamps. So with this side-by-side comparison, it's quite easy to see, right? On the left-hand side, there's quite a lot of stamps missing, right? And some of them, they're kind of hard to get. Whereas I can't find the million subs one. Where is it? It's one of these. It's not the level up gift. It's not cattle prod. There we go. So Steve Sword, hey, obviously, if you don't have Steve Swords from 7-figure followers, that's not really a big deal. Not a lot of people are going to have that done. But the level up gift, cross-platform promotion, encroaching forest villa, these are the ones that you should be getting. Really, that progression from the mid to late game, where you're kind of focusing on all the miscellaneous stuff that you hadn't paid attention to. And I'm also not going to go super in depth in terms of money. As far as material costs, that's something you can get. But what could be a lot of money to someone else may not be a lot of money to someone else. So, for example, 40 luster to me is a lot, but that's not a lot of money to Ganon, right? Who makes whatever's above luster, I don't even know. So, money, not going to talk about it a lot. But as far as the stamps, this is something I kind of glance at. And if I see just a crap ton of stamps missing, that's a problem. Over here, pretty good, and he's getting a lot of progression. Obviously, we got a level 5 here. We should probably fix that. Level 6. So there's a couple small things to fix on the right side, but overall, it's pretty good. And he's focusing on the big one, like the spice stamps and all of the World 4 stuff. So that looks pretty good. And then obviously, you can see the disparity between the total levels of both the stamps. The second thing that I look at, and it's more of a glance really, is I'm seeing if you're actively using your Forge. And just, quickly scrolling down, okay, I see you haven't done, and I'm not going to go super in depth as far as the pay to play. So regardless of, even though he's got whatever this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, he doesn't have the rest of them. Hey, that's no big deal. But what I do notice right off the bat, 2 ores empty, right? So at any given time, you should be making something in ores. Same thing on the right, but as you can see, he is actively across a wide spectrum trying to get those ores up. So as far as that looks good. Looking into upgrades. So on the right hand side, you can see everything is maxed. Love it. You love to see it. So good example of going into the late game. Over here on the right, there's still a lot of room for improvement. I do look to see if anything's like less than halfway. So 14 out of 16. So getting 2 more levels to be able to smelt ores, huge. And it's not really a large cost to max. All right, section 3 is going to be on the ANVIL. Something that I look at quite quickly is I'm looking at your cap, so what you're capable of holding, and then what you're actually trying to get. So over here on the left with Darken, we can see that he's got quite a couple guys going at the thread, which is good because 34.6 and 30.4K. Those are pretty reasonable, pretty good numbers. Over here on the right, same thing. He does have a couple guys on, 55K. So those are pretty good numbers. This guy with 13.5 might want to try and get a little bit more capacity, but still pretty good. And then as you're scrolling down, you can see a little bit more of the same. I would just worry a little bit more about what your guys are doing as far as capacity. Because it looks like they're all, sub 10K for the most part, other than these 2. Obviously, that'd be your Maestro and your Siege Breaker, who naturally have I'd say a benefit or a bonus towards it. But I would spread the guys with the larger numbers up top. They can hold more of the resource. And then the smaller ones, if you can kind of balance it with the speed, towards the bottom. All right, we're in World 2 now. And first thing I look at is I scroll all the way down. I see if you've managed to get all the way down to the bottom of the alchemy tree. So looking at a good example of mid-game, your first progression or your first thought should be, I need to get to the bottom, I need to max, right? You want to make sure that you have all of these open and then getting them to that base level, that way that no bubble left behind can start to proc. Pretty good numbers. I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm seeing what your base stat is going to be. So, for warrior strength, agility, wisdom, and then luck. A couple other things I'm looking for is I'm scrolling on down until I find FMJ. So base defense plus the bonus from equipment to see how you're going to be looking as far as progression. So 24, kind of low. That's something that we can easily get up. And then I come right across and I look at accuracy. Again, and I'm going to use the late game comparison here. So we're looking at 51 and 70, vice 24 and 30, right? So as you're progressing, it's not something that needs to get done right now, but if you're getting serious about the game, you got to look at your accuracy, you got to look at your defense. Once I'm done looking at that, I'm just going to go right across the row. I'm going to look at all of the damage ones. So I'm looking at 30, 48, and 45 versus 65, 80, and 77. So this is where a huge portion of your damage across your account is going to come from. So I'm just seeing how well you're leveling this up. Once that's done, we're done with our accuracy, we're done with our defense, and we're done with our damage. I come over to look at your grind time. So grind time and being able to get those levels up, to be able to get the class XP, to get to whatever level you're looking at, because more levels equals more talents equals flushing out your build. So we're looking at a solid 71 versus 224. So as you can see between the two accounts, what I would recommend for the account on the left, max out your tree, get into your accuracy, get into your FMJ, run the gambit across the board as far as your main damage talents, so Britley Spears, Bojack, and Matty Stafford. Then focus on your grind time. Once all of that's set up, anything that's a level 1 is, priority. You need to hunt that bad boy down. You need to get that bad boy leveled. So it looks like you're making a really concerted effort over here on the right to be able to push the Maestro skill tree, which I love, but don't neglect anything. All right, once I am done with the bubbles, I come over to the vials. So as I'm looking at it, I don't put too much stock. If you're putting in the effort to be able to unlock all the bubbles, that's what I'm looking for. Not necessarily do you have level 20 in all the bubbles, right? So there's a couple here, obviously not too worried about Pickle Jar, but Poison Tincture, at least getting one level in there. Getting into Slower Energy, Goosey Glug, and Bloat Draft if you can get it, Pearl Seltzer if you can get it, in Krakenade. Krakenade's a huge asset to your account. So as we look at the left account and then obviously the one on the right, only ones they're missing would be a random chance from the arcade or being able to unlock the Blobfish. So on the right hand side, it's looking pretty good. Definitely making those moves towards in-game. And then the one on the left, I'd say just short up a little bit, put a little bit more love into your vials, and then last but not least, then start to worry about your sigils. The reason I say that is if I look at your bubbles and you're still missing bubbles, you haven't maxed, quote unquote, maxed alchemy, because there's still a lot you can do once you've gotten all the way to the bottom of the skill tree. But if you haven't gotten all the bubbles, I would say getting sigils and then maxing sigils, which means getting the progression once and then going again at a higher level and then maxing it. That shouldn't be the forefront of your mind, right? You can see that they did a good base, the 4 main damage boosts, which is great, but again, I would worry more about the bubbles. Get the bubbles all the way down near the end and then start to work into sigils. Sigils are not the priority right now. I would say that the account on the right, pretty good job. They did a little bit more of the same. They're not too worried about maxing. They're just trying to unlock as many of the sigils as they can. And to be fair, I think they made enough progression in alchemy that they could start to worry about the sigils. All right, going into World 3. So things that I look at, and there's a couple good examples on both of these, right? So as I'm looking at it, I do see a lot of red, and it's on both sides here, right? Both sides. I would say that where this, we'll start with the account on the right, Where this account is right now, I wouldn't have ranked up to rank 14 just yet, simply because, you know, I haven't got into his 3D printer. But this is the level where you're going to have to start worrying about, can you actually produce enough of the materials to be able to use that rank, right? Same here. All right, it looks like you're not making enough of the ram horns. You're not making enough of the forest fibers, pocket sand, flies, right, all the way down. So for both accounts, I would say that this is a good time. Do a honest inventory of yourself, and don't rank up past the point where you can actually be able to continuously produce the salts. So starting with the top one, the red salts should never stop. I will link a infinite refinery post somewhere on my YouTube video. That way you can look at it, and that's what I currently use. It's an 11-6-3-6-3-1 split. That way at all times I can have all my salts, you know, being produced, and you don't run into these blockades where you're not actually making enough of the material to keep them running. All right, when I come over and I look at Idleon efficiencies for people, I don't put a whole lot of stock into salt lick, because it's a case of just hurrying up and waiting, right? You'll eventually get whatever you're looking for, so not too worried about that. I do a quick glance at the 3D printer just to see how you're focused up. Big things I look at is, real quick, I come in and I look at it, and good example on the right is there's an active lower than sample. So he has a sample of 15.7, but he's only printing 14.1K. So all he would have to do is click that off, come back, click that, now you get the 15.7K. So, you know, Averip, if you're watching this video, brother, go knock that out, okay? And then I would say for both accounts, you can see there's a stark difference between what you can see as an old sample, which, you know, this 90, 61, 210, and then you start seeing 52.8K, 87.9, 96.1. So I can tell that he's gone back, and on a couple of these he has resampled, but he has not gone back and resampled his 27 audio chords or his 105 mushrooms. So my advice would be, hey, I can tell that your account has progressed far enough to be able to do this and this and this. You need to go back, brother. You need to have an honest assessment. You need to go back out there and you need to resample mushrooms. And then there should never, ever, 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 brother, be an empty guy in your 3D printer. For the account on the right, a little bit of the same, right? If you're getting 285,000, you know, copper ore an hour, then we need to go back. We need to be doing better than 68 ram horns. We need to, you know, if you can get 15.7K on this guy, then this shouldn't be 736. Just small things like that, right? Death Note, not something I super go into, because again, this is just one that takes a little bit of time. You can see between the differences between the two accounts, a little bit higher on the right hand side than they are on the left, but again, this is just time. It takes time to go out and get those, so I never harp on this enough or a lot, but it's just something that, you know, in the back of your mind, you know, keep it in the back of your mind, work on it. Same for shrines. You can see they're both doing the same. This is more or less how it works once you get to World 4. They're all in Outer World Town. Just got to keep them there. Get them being built. Get them keeping leveled up. So, same thing for buildings. Not a lot of stock. It's something I know they're working on for the most part. Unless I come in here and I see their 3D printer is at a 1, then obviously, you know, I might point that out. But as they are right now, I didn't see anything when I went through that really required a lot of attention. Just time to be able to level it up. Obviously, get your construction up, makes it faster. But yeah, nothing too big in the building section. Another one that I do like to stomp at a lot is cooking. So I come in, I look at World 4, and I look at a couple different things, right? The first thing that you should be trying to progress is getting that cooking speed up. So I look for cabbages, I look for corn dogs, and then if they have any other all cooking speed or meal cooking speed, I try to look at those first, right? So there's a problem if you're trying to get, let me find one, you know, 30 pancakes, but you have a level 1 cabbage, right? You're kind of getting that order backwards. You want to get those cabbages up, kind of like on the right. He's got 20, and it looks like he's kind of just working his way down, same way I do it. And he's trying to snipe certain key upgrades, and then he's leveling those up first before he goes into it. Pretty good levels on the corn dogs, pretty good levels on the cabbages. I don't see, there we go. Okay, so he's got whatever this is called. I think it's canopy or something. Can of peas. Getting that leveled up, which is good. I don't see that he's unlocked the drink yet for more meal cooking speed. So if I had to give him, one recommendation, push for new salts. Push for new salts, get those new recipes. Same for the one on the left. You're doing it right. I'd get those cabbages up just a little bit more before I worried about lab XP. Same for the meal cooking speed. So I'd get these two bad boys up just a little bit more, and then start unlocking the Diamond Chef, and then just work your way down. Get those level 11s, get new cooking spices, and then you're living. Okay, another one I just glance over, and I did get permission from both of these gentlemen to go over their videos, to go over their Idleon Efficiencies live. When I'm looking at it, I had to do a double take when I just started recording, because I saw 9 dudes in the lab. Six in the lab over here. For 9 dudes in the lab, that is a way to go about it. I'm not saying that this is wrong by any stretch of the imagination, especially if you're going to take a little bit of time away from the game and you just don't want to micromanage 10 people. This is completely fine. He's trying to get all of his guys and their connections up. That way, he can eventually work his way down to the 6-person split. And then over here on the right, you can see he's got the 6-person split going on. Again, I don't harp on it. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't wait faster. It's not like you can get more lab experience by just thinking about it, right? So really good on the left as far as the connections and the jewels. They're both doing pretty solid. They've got all the jewels unlocked. It's just a waiting game, but I think both accounts are looking good. And if that's what they're trying to go for, 9 over here and 6 over here, those both look good to me. For breeding, I usually never give my opinion, just because breeding is still something I'm actively learning. The biggest thing I do is I come in and I just see that they're actually hitting all the people in there. They've got every slot filled up, and there's not an open gap where they could be getting spices, and they're just not able to get it. So as I look at it, I go over both accounts, and then that's more or less the advice that I give them. When it comes to players, I usually don't go super deep into what each individual player is doing. I look at overall account progression. If someone does have any questions specifically about a certain character, then that's when I would jump in. But as far as it goes, I think both of these guys have their characters where they want them. So yeah, I don't deep dive into characters if anybody has questions about their characters, or if you want someone to look at your Idleon efficiency, go ahead and drop that down in the comments below. Absolutely a good video to make, and I did love doing this side-by-side comparison, so you can see a good example of mid-game, good example of getting closer to late game. Good accounts on both of them, absolutely good accounts on both of them. But I do believe that is going to wrap it up for me today, boys. Just a quick dive into what I look at as far as Idleon efficiency. If you have Idleon efficiencies that you want looked at, again, drop them down in the comments, or you can post it over in the PalmerPlays Discord. And either myself or any one of the awesome brothers we have over there, more than happy to look at those for you. But hopefully you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.